Welcome to the football show on PLZ Soccer on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. We've got lots to talk about, but there's nothing worse than starting the show and Ruffy has said something to 1 minute just before we come on here. You're a disgrace, by the way. Can I just say something to you? We've got lots of things to talk about, including, of course, the two Scottish Cup semi-finals. Give us your view, because you undoubtedly will want to say something about it. And also, we've got the quiz, and we'll give you the answer to that before we get to the end of the programme. Might as well ask, of course, you guys, who was Aberdeen boss when the Dons last played European group stage football? So if you think you know the answer, we'll give you it at the end of this programme. Who was the boss of Aberdeen the last time they played European group stage football? And the reason we're mentioning that is because, of course, Barry Robson has been confirmed as the Aberdeen boss beyond the end of this season. He's got a 2-year contract with Steve Agnew in there to help him. Here's a statement from Dave Cormack. Congratulations to him. Barry has not only delivered excellent results on the pitch over the last couple of months, he's also been instrumental in implementing a holistic approach at Cormack Park, whereby youth academy and first team coaches and staff are working closely together on a club-wide approach to player development, delivering a consistent playing philosophy from the academy to the first team and maintaining and developing the player pathway to first team football. Barry's focus now, whilst clearly pushing to secure European football for the club, will be on the recruitment process for next season. So, well done to him. I think he deserves tremendous credit for that. That was announced earlier this afternoon, and no surprise, Ruffy, really.
No, I don't think so. I think he's in there. And as I said, you know, sometimes it's not all about what you do on the park, it's behind the scenes. And with that statement there, he certainly impressed everybody. Training, coaching, you know, bringing all the young boys into the setup and everything. But at the end of the day, you could not give him it. I know they had 2 candidates they interviewed, but they obviously never come up to scratch, and he's done particularly well. Yeah, and fair play to him, Alison, because I think the general feeling was he was going to have that short-term fix for Aberdeen until they got the candidates that Ruffy was talking about, but he just put himself in such a strong position.
Yeah, I have to say, I thought it was an odd call at the time not to give him it, but to give him it on an interim basis. I thought it was very much a public audition for the job, but I don't think he could have given a better interview than what he has across the last couple of months. I think to have taken Aberdeen from where they were in terms of their league position to be now, I think, probably favourites to go and get that third spot in the European place, I think is testament to the work that's going on. He's clearly well liked within the dressing room. I think he got an immediate response out the players that were there, and yeah, I think it was inevitable the longer it went on that he would get the job. I think maybe the only surprise might have been the timing of it. I think most people might have anticipated it would have come at the end of the campaign. However, I think he'll be delighted that he can relax into the role now, that, you know, you're not just there and being in your best behaviour. You can go now and set about the job as you wish to do so and properly get your feet under the desk. Yeah, okay. Good luck to Barry Robson at Aberdeen. Just before we talk about the Scottish Cup semi-final results, a couple of things. Congratulations to Steen Stissel, who'll play Cooper Hearts in the Scottish Amateur Cup final on May 10th at Hampden.
Yep, I was at the semi-final. Steen's beat East Kilbride Rolls Royce, unfortunately. Craig Young as a coach at East Kilbride, and they get beat 1-0. So, listen, I think it'll be brilliant for the guys to go and play at Hampden. It's superb. I think Cooper Hearts are the favourites to win it, but well done. And happy birthday, I think, to Dave Cunningham's daughter, or son, I can't remember who it was. Yeah. Told me today to say happy birthday. So Dave, if you're watching,
one
happy
of your
birthday.
Children has a birthday.
One of your children has a birthday. I can't remember who.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't forget, Tam's here later on doing a request show playing all the hits from the 70s. Anyway, apart from that, Ruffy, I've got to say a big thank you to Norrie Gray's wife, because Norrie won the Kieran Tierney signed print from Gio Thompson. So I just get in the car, as I often do, Ruffy, with yourself, but this time on Moan, chapped the door at Norrie's house in Barrhead, and Barrhead's a place I remember fondly, because the last time I was there I was at a party, so I chapped the door and just reminded Norrie's wife of the fact that I only ever visit Barrhead for a party, and Norrie wasn't in. So it was an absolute godsend that I never brought you. so we handed over this brilliant print, and Norrie's boy is a big Arsenal fan, so it doesn't get any better. Prize winners were delivering it to their door, Ruffy.
Yep, and I think that'll be captured if he's an Arsenal supporter. It'll be in his room. Not any debate where that picture's going to go.
Yeah, and last week's competition winner is in Benbecula, and Ali's going to go up there on a little two-seater plane and deliver that prize as well. So
The one has the reports on the beach.
yes. Yeah, we quite fancy letting you go there as well, Ali. Okay, so it's Celtic and Inverness who will play each other in the final on June 3rd at Hampden after the Scottish Cup wins for Inverness over Falkirk and Celtic defeating Rangers. So there's lots to ask. What does it mean? Treble for Celtic on the cards. Can Inverness shock them once more? What about Michael Beale and that rebuilding job at Rangers? Can they get enough quality players in to put a serious title challenge in next year? Give us your thoughts on that. Of course, John McGlynn mentioned that he thought Falkirk played the better football in their semi-final, but goals matter. So give us your thoughts on that across all our channel. Hi to so many people. Bob Miller says hi to the PLZ team. Crash helmets on today, gang. I think you're absolutely right, because there's a few people who will obviously want to give us their tuppence worth with regards to the big game. So in the end, one defining moment, Ruffy. 4 Rangers players totally and utterly switched off. Maeda didn't, and when he put that ball across, even James Tavernier at the back post, you'd have thought would maybe have a look over his shoulder, but there was Jota to bullet the ball into the back of the net, and from there Cameron Carter-Vickers and the rest of that back line defended that 1-goal advantage.
Yeah, I think the goal itself, Maeda's turn and cross all in a one movement, was absolutely fantastic to watch. Technically it was good. Tavernier did have a look at Jota twice, but he never looked the third time. The crucial time when Jota had made his move, he knew he was there, but he was just too quick for him. And you have to say, yeah, I've questioned that Celtic defence nearly all year because they've never been tested. The only time they get tested is when they're in Europe, and unfortunately they didn't come up with the goods, but they had to defend the numbers at the weekend and they were fantastic. Starfelt as well, another guy who I've been having a wee go at through the season. I thought he was superb as well. I mean, Rangers threw the kitchen sink at it, as you would do. You would expect that in the last 20 minutes of a game, but I think in the end, any time Celtic got possession of the ball, they were coasting, and they created chances as well, but never took them.
Sometimes, and Tam, I'm going to ask you this. Sometimes, from a footballing perspective, you know what it's like if Celtic or Rangers lose a match. The narrative can sometimes be on the negative, and everybody analysing Rangers and where they have to go and what it means. But I think that there's a necessity to highlight the positives of what Celtic have achieved there, because Ange Postecoglou does have the measure of Michael Beale in that Rangers side this season. You know what you're going to get from them. They work their socks off, and it's just those little flashes. And I could not believe that when O'Reilly fell, the Rangers defence just stopped. Some of them were running the other way.
Yeah, but I just think that is the Rangers 2 fullbacks in a nutshell, that goal. I think you look at Barisic, who just stops. Raskin, I think, is probably more at fault. I think he's closer to the ball, he can go and get the ball. They think it's going to be a foul. I think they've got to play the whistle. And then it's just horrendous defending for Tavernier at the back post. You're taught as a defender as a young kid, make sure you can see the ball and the man, get side on. He's totally transfixed on the ball. He's no idea that Jota's in behind him. And by the time he turns round, it's too late. The ball's in the back of the net. Terrible defending. We give Tavernier praise for going forward. He scored a lot of goals for Rangers, but defensively he is poor and has been poor for Rangers, his whole career, to be honest. So I thought it was a poor goal for Rangers to lose, and I thought Rangers created chances in the second half. I thought they had a lot of pressure, but I didn't think, bar the one off the post in the open goal, I don't think they really had massive chances. I think Sakala's got to score. It's a very similar one to the one he missed in the final. He's got to show more composure. It's an open goal. You've just got to stroke it into the net. And if that goes in, listen, it's a different game, Rangers in the ascendancy, but Celtic just know how to win. They know how to beat Rangers, and they're not their best again. And we spoke about it, the whole build-up. Celtic know how to win when they're not their best. They weren't their best again, and that must be hugely frustrating for not only Rangers players and management, but for their fans as well.
Yeah, well, I think you've got to give Celtic great credit, because They know exactly what to do when they get that goal ahead. Not only were they able to defend it, but the work rate was astounding at times, and I think Ange Postecoglou was quick to praise every one of the players for what they delivered.
We had chances as well. I mean, I get the narrative we'll be lucky again, but that's all right. We just keep winning games of football, and I thought we defended really well. There was a lot of balls coming in the box, and I thought two centre halves were outstanding. I thought the work rate of our front players. Days of Maeda was incredible, particularly in the first half. And like I said, you have to earn these things, and I was really pleased that this team showed that they can be resilient as well as play the football that we know we can.
Yeah, you look at it, Cameron Carter-Vickers, he's not going to play in the final, Alison. He put himself out there, stepped up to the plate, even with that knee injury, to make sure he was going to do everything he could to get Celtic into that final. And as the manager highlighted there, Maeda, his engine is incredible. There was one point where he lost the ball and ran half the length of the field to make sure he got the tackle in to win it back.
His work rate is, I think his work rate probably epitomises that Celtic team under Postecoglou. I think they are a hard-working team than an industrious team, but I think even then he would stand out just for what you've referenced. I think you could pinpoint actually 3 or 4 instances like that off the top of your head in the game where he's tracking back, tracking runners, coming back with full-backs, getting the block in and then getting back up to the other end of the pitch. I thought the composure and the quality of the delivery for the goal was good too. I think that was one of the aspects of his game that was criticised when he first went into that team and prior to the World Cup. I think there was some criticism from Celtic fans about final balls and the quality of it, but I thought it was excellent. I thought the awareness to do it and the speed of thought to be quick to latch onto it. Yeah, I thought Cameron Carter-Vickers was Celtic's man of the match by some distance, but I think Maeda would have been up there too.
Yeah, and as you say, quick thinking delivered the goal, and the manner of that goal, the way they lost it, angered Rangers boss Michael Beale.
I don't know. We throw them big words out, mentality and character and things like that. We've switched off. Like 2 or 3 players are switched off. They know they're in there, they're kicking themselves. It's a big moment in their careers. It's a costly moment for all of us as a football club. No one went out there to switch off. We did. It was clear 2 or 3 did. And they score. And fair play to them in that moment. They're alive, we're not.
Yeah, Peter, it wasn't just that. It was the free kick just before it. The Rangers players switched off. I think it was Ryan Kent who started walking, turned his back on it. And Celtic played the quick free kick. And we all know from watching Celtic all season, quick throw-ins, quick free kicks, and there was 2 or 3 of them, not just in the goal, but just before the goal, that switched off for the quick free kick that led to the goal. So, you would think the Rangers would have learned, having played against Celtic all season, that they take things quickly. And as the manager said there, they all switched off, and that cost them the game.
Yeah, they had 52% of possession, 13 shots, but only 3 on target. At the end of the day, we've been in this movie 1,000,001 times, as journalists in the press box, Ali, when you watch games. I used to watch Celtic dominate many an Old Firm clash when Rangers really had a good team, and they just picked them off at will in that 9 in a row era. And for me, it's just a flip in the cycle where Celtic have got the Indian sign over Rangers. They know exactly, when to pick their moment and how to beat them. And some people are talking about, well, if they put their chances away. To me, and I think Michael Beale, we'll hear from him a little later on, emphasised the fact that it's quality. That's the difference. It's the quality to seize those moments and turn them into goals. And I don't think they've got that in abundance.
Yeah, I think that's the difference between certain levels of players. I think it's your decision making in big games under pressure. The ability to make a decision and execute it very quickly comes down to the quality of player that you have within your team. And I think Celtic probably have more big game players. They have players who can cope with the pressure of that kind of stage. I think if you look at Jota, you look at Kyogo, you take their goals over the course of this season against Rangers, and you look at Rangers and you think, well, where are the match winners? What has Ryan Kent done in the fixture across the course of the season? What's Alfredo Morelos done over the course of the season? James Tavernier. These are your players that you need to go and stamp their authority on the game. You need players who can deliver on a big game occasion, and I don't see that Rangers have that just now. I think it's conspicuous by its absence. I think that there's a difference in mentality there, and I think when you go on successive games without winning, I think you're kidding yourself on if you say it doesn't bleed into the psyche of the team. I think there's no question that it does, and I think Rangers players will know themselves. Celtic haven't played particularly well against them, that they were there for the taking in games over the last few meetings between the teams, that they should have come away with something. The fact that they're not beating them when Celtic are poor does feed into the team. It definitely leaves an imprint.
Yeah, well, Jota scored the decisive goal, and at the end of it, I think he was quick to point out that, okay, he got the goal, but it was more about a team ethic.
Every game is different, to be honest, so as long as I can help the team achieving their goals, I think I'll be happy if I score, if I don't score. My aim is just to help them to be happy on the pitch, to create the situations for them. That's the kind of player I want to be.
Well, he looked a threat when he was on the ball, Ruffy, and he provided the ultimate threat.
Yeah, well, Celtic players in the forward area are always a threat. Maida on one side, him on the other side. Kyogo's got the pace, that Rangers didn't have, and he's electric over a short space of time. And that's where they cause problems. The only person that caused Celtic problem was the fullback, Tavernier. Tavernier had all the chances. Nobody else in the midfield never had them. None of them hit target. The forward Rangers players never hit target. So Tavernier was the only one that was hitting the target and making the saves. So, you got to look at that as well. Why is that? Why are the forwards? Kyogo's so sharp, and you look at him and you look at Morelos. Morelos was a waste of time. I think the criticism towards the Rangers manager would be sticking by Morelos and Kent. Particularly with Kent carrying an injury. It was too big a gamble and too big a game for them to be playing, I think.
I don't think they should kick another ball for Rangers.
Well, to be fair,
Morelos, I'd see you later.
The one thing I think is a huge disappointment, Tam, is the fact that so much emphasis is made on them being game changers. They're not game changers in the big games. He scored 3 goals in his 6 years at Rangers, 3 goals against Celtic. And these big games that they really wanted him to step up, he hasn't been able to do it. Kent, for me, continually always either cutting in to traffic and firing the ball over the bar. I actually looked at one point and thought, I haven't seen them in that first half in any really dangerous area where you thought there was real pressure on Celtic and fear. And by the way, they're not the only ones. A lot of people, may well criticise Tavernier, but I thought Tavernier was the one who was most likely to create something because he puts a good ball into the box. And of course, he's the biggest goal threat as well, which is a sad indictment of the rest of them. And it's not just Kent and Morelos. Some of the others are just not good enough to stay at Rangers. I think they've got do you know where I think their biggest problem is now? The whole spine of the team is where it's got to be rebuilt. From the 2 centre halves, the keeper, midfield that he's got to get right that can boss Celtic if they're going to win the title, and then strikers of note. What a major build that is.
I think it's the forward areas, Peter. I think the 2 centre halves for Rangers were fine at the weekend.
You do.
Goldson and Davis.
You'll not win the league with Goldson and Davis.
They'll not win the league with the front 3 they've got. They'll not win the league with Morelos or Kent. I would chase the 2 of them now, Peter. They're there.
Oh no, I think they're gone. I think that's the general
feeling. They would never kick another ball for Rangers. They're not going to be there next season. So why don't you play players that are going to be there? I think you will. I don't think you'll see them again, but I think the forward areas, that's the big difference. Celtic, took their chance, clinical. Great ball in from one wing and the other winger scores. Rangers were poor. Sakala, who came on, was hopeless. Hopeless, Peter. That open goal, it's the exact same one he missed in the League Cup final. The open goal, just a wee bit of composure, just stroke it into the net, hits the side net, and again he was hitting balls at the pitch, crossing the ball at the park. Hopeless. So Rangers, where's Cholak? Is he still injured? I think Rangers need to sign 3 or 4 forwards.
You might mention 3 or 4.
Maybe 5.
When Michael Beale came into the press conference, somebody talked to him about a major rebuild, and of course mentioned a figure like, is it 12 players you need?
Listen, it'll be the biggest rebuild I think this club would have seen in a number of years, and you have to be respectful. You're coming in November, you know that changes will be made. Every time you come to a press conference, people ask you about it. I've got a group of players that I need to manage and keep moving forward and motivate for the games that I've been here. It's obvious I'm not going to come out and condemn people and send people away. But I think it's also obvious that we're getting to the summer and there's going to be some change. If you haven't heard any news now around certain players, it would be amiss not to keep asking the same questions, because if you don't hear anything then and people's contracts are running out, it probably gives you a good indication there's change in the air.
Ali, that's manager speak for Kent and Morelos won't be there.
Yeah, I think everyone's known that since the turn of the year, and I have a bit of sympathy for what he says here. You're going in mid-season, you've still got that group of players to manage throughout the rest of the campaign, and you don't want it falling apart. And by and large, I think until recent weeks, I think most people would have been fairly happy with what Michael Beale had done, and the only games he'd lost were against Celtic. But the problem for him is when you come to Glasgow, you're judged so heavily on the games against Celtic. That's 4 games now without a win. I think he finds himself under pressure now going into next season. He has to deliver one. You're, as a manager at Celtic or Rangers, that's exactly what you're judged on, as well as your silverware and your return. You have to go out and have big performances against Celtic. It's a must. In terms of the squad change, it's inevitable. I think everyone's seen it. It's been stagnant. It's been stagnant for too long. I think it's not just this season. I think Rangers have stood still. I think they were guilty of not cashing in on the likes of Alfredo Morelos and Kent when their ticket was hot, when they would have commanded some money for them. I think that's a sensible time to do it, when you can then reinvest and keep the recycling of finances going into your team, and you're constantly changing it, you're constantly freshening it up, you're keeping people on their toes. There's always a competition for places. I think without it, I think you see what you get. I think there's just a staleness about that whole side.
It's a double-edged sword though, because if you sell them at the time when they were really hot, you know, Rangers fans are saying, okay, you've sold them, get somebody in quickly with the money that you've got for them. And remember, the expectation is, this is a side who stopped to 10, this is a side who suddenly got to a Europa League final. The expectation started to go up and up and up. Gerrard was gone, in came Van Bronckhorst, suddenly you're in a Europa League final. So the expectation was there, and you're saying to yourself, can they build on winning back-to-back titles? So that was the real double-edged sword on how they got it wrong with Morelos and Kent, trying to judge, can we sell them without getting flack, can we get the good enough amount of money and then reinvest it in getting players of a similar calibre, Ruffy?
Yeah, I think that's where the problem was with the supporters. The supporters weren't happy with whoever was in charge was moving the club onward, moving them to win the league the next season, to be in Europe again, and they never maintained that. They never spent enough money or brought in any more quality, you know. But that's a decision that the manager has to make. I think the alarming thing is now, I mean, I'm only going by the papers, and I said it last week, it'll be interesting to see where the next crop are coming from. And I said it last week, it'll be the Championship. It'll be the Championship where he was the bosser. And he'll identify players down there who did particularly well against Queen's Park Rangers. And the other worrying thing is, it's all players that are out of contract. They're not spending money. No, they're looking at guys who are coming at the end of their contract and identifying them.
Would you buy Tillman?
He's not done enough. You know, he's only a young lad. You know, I wouldn't buy him. I would do my best to get him on loan. You know, I'd definitely be going back there saying, look, give us him another year, save the $5 million and use it elsewhere. But depends whether they want him to go out another year.
No. When I pay $5 million for him. No, I'd agree with Ruffy, try and get him on loan for another year. I don't think Rangers have got I know Michael Beale said he's got the biggest budget they've ever had or whatever, but I don't think they've got a bottomless pit at Rangers, and I think $5 million for him is a massive outlay for somebody that could be good.
He's only 20.
He could be good. I don't think Rangers are in the mark. I think Rangers need to get somebody who's ready.
I mean, if you look at that Rangers side, McGregor's obviously going to hang up the gloves. Tavernier, I think, will stay. Golson will stay. Davis, not good enough. Barisic.
He's been wanting to leave for ages.
Yeah.
Barisic
will be gone. Lundstrom, I know a lot of Rangers fans are not happy with Lundstrom. And then you've got Kent, big dilemma over Tillman, and Morelos, well, he's away as well. And then you look at the players they brought on. Scott Arfield, I think in the twilight of his career. Sakala, 2 big chances in 2 big games, couldn't deliver. Yilmaz, if he stays free of injury, will be a squad player or a starter in that left back. But Rabi Matondo?
No.
Hadji?
No.
No?
Nope.
Okay, so it's a major. You can understand why Michael Beale said, you know, could be up to as many as a dozen players that he's got to get in. With all due respect, I would say one thing though. apart from anything else, it's speculation on where they're going to spend their money and how much money they've got to spend, Alison. That's always the unknown. There may well be championship players, but they have a scouting team now that they will be looking towards Europe and trying to explore markets to try and get some gems, some kind of potential to fill the expectation that the Rangers fans are demanding. Because the one thing about it is, and as you've just mentioned there about second is nowhere, when the Rangers players went to the Rangers end to try and applaud them, they got 5 yards inside their own half and then quickly did a U-turn and headed up the tunnel because the Rangers fans were having none of it.
Yeah, they chased them. They basically, and you can see their point. If it's not good enough, don't turn up and look for the applause. I think they made their feelings absolutely clear. I think there was no ambiguity whatsoever about what their perceptions are of them as players. I think it's an invitation to go and look at yourself in the mirror and see, have you contributed enough. In terms of the recruitment, you would think that the net should be cast far and wide. I think Scottish football is actually getting to a point where even championship salaries, can Scotland compete with them? You look at the top end of the championship, some of the finances there are eye-watering compared to what Scottish clubs can pay, realistically can play. So I think there's
Europe's always an attraction, isn't it, though?
I think Europe, but I think you have to be clever about it. I think you have to be prepared to try and go and look elsewhere. And to be fair, Rangers had some success with that with Alfredo Morelos. Alfredo Morelos from Helsinki didn't cost a lot of money. It was £1 million or something. And his initial impact at the club was good. I think you have to be prepared to do your homework, to do your due diligence on players, to work out if they've got the attributes that come in, first of all, to fit into the system and the style of play you want to perform at, and also whether or not they have the mentality to go into a club like Rangers. I think you have to be honest with yourself and say there's a demand at Rangers and at Celtic that's pretty unique to other clubs. I think you have to have players who are comfortable with that. I think maybe like an Alistair Johnson, you look at a guy coming from Canada, doubtful that he's ever heard or known much about Celtic in his life, but the arrival is seamless because you bring in a personality that can cope with the demands around the club, and I think that's a big part of it too.
Yeah, John Lundstrom, one of the players who I think will be there at Ibrox next season, said that they've just got to, in that recruitment, get it right.
Yeah, it is, of course it is. It's frustrating for everyone, and going forward into next season now we've really got to nail it down, because we can't have another season like this season.
Yeah, I mean, short and sharp on it, Tam. Can't have the same again, because as I mentioned before this game, before we knew the outcome of it, I did mention to you that Michael Beale's biggest job is building a side that first of all gets them beyond the qualifiers into the group stage of European football, and secondary to that, got to be in touch, if not neck and neck, ahead would be a bonus, but in touch with Celtic, September, October, or people will be calling for his head.
Yeah, I think that result yesterday, takes any sort of credit he maybe had in the bank away from him going into the summer. I think if he'd have got that, if he'd have won yesterday and won the Scottish Cup, I think he'd have got a wee bit of a leeway at the start of next season, but there's none now. There's none now with the Rangers fans. I think they'll be looking to hit the ground running next season, to get into the Champions League and to be more competitive against Celtic. He's got a big job on, because I've not got a director of football at the minute, so it's going to be between him, maybe John Park and other guys at Rangers, and they've got to get together and they've got to sign some quality, because John Lundstrom, for me, not a Rangers midfield player, shouldn't be playing every week. I think he's a handy squad player. I think you need better than him if you're going to go and challenge Celtic. So listen, I think they've got a big job on, because I can see Celtic improving, getting better. I think the recruitment for Celtic has been bang on over the piece. And I think Rangers has got to be bang on, or else Celtic are going to go further ahead of them. Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest dilemma as well. We're talking about Michael Beale's job because he'll have a list that he'll want to put together. And as you guys know, Alison highlighted Alistair Johnson there coming in. But of that list, Ruffy, that Michael Beale suddenly presents to this board, and remember, this is a board where, Stuart Robertson's managing director stepping down. Rangers fans not happy with him. Ross Wilson, as Tam alluded to, gone. And they're going to have to, as a board, look and say to themselves, how much money do we need to finance this? Because that's the other big dilemma. Because as well as anything else, it's
It's the finances. How much money have you got for a massive rebuild, and are there enough investors there to turn around and say, here's the money on the same circumstances as before?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting what way they go down. You know, he keeps talking about, you know, the players I'll be bringing in will be for the next 3 or 4 years. I want players that are going to be there for 3 or 4 years. I want players that are not going to be injured, you know, and miss half the season. You know, and again, as I said, you know, it depends where he's going to tap into. You know, because if he goes down to the English Championship, and Alison's already said that, they'll be on massive wages, more than they're on the average Rangers player will be on. So, I mean, Ange has proved that there is a market out there, but you've got to tap into it and you've got to get it right. Ange has done that. He's brought the boys from overseas and they've been super. Now, if he starts delving into the market thinking he's going to pick up players who no other club are wanting, it's a gamble. Because they've got to come up and produce the goods.
Yeah, of course, so many players that have come in at Celtic have been a success, and I think that's the other thing about it. When you actually see your great rivals coming up with players who suddenly come in, some are in immediately and hit the ground running, some have just been slowly but surely drip fed into the side, and even then they have impressed as well. I'm talking about Haksabanovic. I just looked at you there and I thought, should I really look at him for Haksabanovic?
I was glad he never come on and scored yesterday.
Absolutely. And of course, even O makes that appearance. Iwata, there's no great rush to get them in there, Ali, to say you must perform right away. He can slowly but surely ease them in. I mean, Hatate, who came back from injury, he wasn't at his best yesterday, but he did enough to make sure that midfield was not in any way overly threatened.
Yeah, I think so. The difference is when Ange Postecoglou did take over, he did need to get players in right away. You think Hugo was put in at Tynecastle. I think he said he'd barely come off the plane. And he got
them in early. I mean, it was a real change because you and I were in. I can remember everybody looking at Ange Postecoglou and saying, okay, they didn't get Eddie Howe, so they got a bit of flack. In comes this guy nobody knows anything about, and then all of a sudden you're thinking, oh, wait a minute, Celtic are signing players before the last day of the transfer window, which was a classic.
It was quite obvious. He came in and said, I want X, Y and Z.
Yes.
These are the guys I think are going to fit into this system. This is the way I want to play. This is the identity of my team. These guys I know can come in and perform. And he did it again in the January. If you think about Hatate, O'Reilly, when they came in midway through the season and then made an immediate impact. I think others haven't made quite the same contribution as quickly. There maybe still get some question marks over what they do over the course of the next few months or so. But I think by and large his recruitment has been faultless. I think over the course of the piece you would have to say there's been far more successes than there have failures. But interestingly, he's spoken repeatedly to us, and you'll know this yourself, Peter, at press conferences of saying, you know, I don't get sentimental about players. I don't want fans to be sentimental about them. If we get a big offer for someone and they want to go, they're going in. I think you saw that with Juranovic over at Christmas time. One out, one straight in his place. You know exactly what you're doing. No messing about. If someone doesn't want to be there, you take the money and then you go in and you source a replacement right away. And I think it keeps teams fresh. I think you maintain a level of competition within the team, which is important. And we spoke about it, I think it was prior to the League Cup final when you had the two teams, you had Celtic and Rangers up from the 2019 Cup final, and you looked at the differences and Rangers was almost identical. I don't think that's healthy for any club to go that length of time without bringing in new players.
Yeah, the players that have done the business at Celtic, one of them was man of the match yesterday, Cameron Carter-Vickers, and I think Ange Postecoglou, rightly so, was highlighting all the positives about a man who wanted to play through an injury before getting the operation.
Keeps growing as a player, as a leader within the group. That's his last game for us, so he'll get his. He needs to get his injury looked at now, so that'll be it for him this season. But he wanted to play today. I sort of was trying to push for him to have it done a bit earlier, but I'm scared of him, so I just let him do what he wants. And he was keen on playing today, and he put in a performance that befits his standing at our football club, and it's a credit to him.
I think the Celtic fans realised when he signed on, they had a player and a half. I think there was a wee bit of worry that they were never going to get him on a full-time contract, but he's been an absolute star for them, hasn't he?
Yeah, I thought he was outstanding at the weekend. I thought he...
Is he in the running for player of...
Yeah, I think he has to be. I think, I'm thinking of centre-halves at Celtic, Virgil van Dijk, you know, off the top of my head, you know, I can't think of many better Celtic centre halves in the last wee while than him. I think he's got everything. You know, I've seen him at close quarters when Celtic played Hibs. He's quick. You know, he gets tight to players. He puts his head in where other centre halves wouldn't. You know, he defends well. His use of the ball's decent. He's a very, very good player. And Celtic obviously pushed the boat out to get him full time. And I think that's going to be a great decision, because I think if it ever comes, you know, if he looks to go somewhere else, Celtic will get big money for him. I think he's a tremendous centre half. And I think when you see a guy like that playing like that, and he's obviously struggling, I think he's getting his knee or something done.
Yeah.
He's maybe got a bit of cartilage floating about or something, and he's tidied up. You know, to put that performance in when he's not 100% fit in a game like that just shows you how good a player he is.
Yeah, of course. Can you see him pushing? We think the likes of Kyogo is a shoe-in to win the Player of the Year.
Me.
Too late?
Too late. One excellent game, fantastic game, man of the match. You know, he's had a great season, you know, but the stick-outs for me are Hatate and Kyogo.
Yeah. Ali, would you agree with Ruffy?
I would agree with that. I think as well, people always like to see it going to the attacking players, however fair that is. I think Cameron Carter-Vickers has probably underpinned the solidity within Celtic this season and enabled creative players to go and flourish. But for me, I think there's probably a few contenders ahead of him. I think Kyogo, Jota, Hatate, I think Cal McGregor, I think would all be viable contenders for it.
Yeah, okay. Of course, the nominees for the Player of the Year in all the divisions will be slowly but surely drip fed out over the next couple of days. The votes have come in, and we'll start to see who's in that final four before we reveal the overall Player of the Year in all the divisions across the men and the women's game on the 14th of May at the Hilton. It's a great night. We thoroughly enjoy it, Ruffy, and only the really good team players who work for a company go to that night. They don't put anything in their way. Everybody comes together. We all enjoy the night, and then we have a wee celebration of the season at the end of it. But it's really team players. It's not anybody who's just trying to kiss the badge and work their ticket elsewhere.
Yeah, well, sometimes there's some people don't come to these things, and it's a good thing, you know. But you got to give him a break.
What?
He's got a wee holiday.
Can I just say something? Yeah, Ali, one of the finest drinkers of our generation. Ali, I mean, honestly, he's getting on a plane at 3 o'clock in the morning and he said, I can't go.
I can't come to the PFA Awards with a free bar
Very
and I'm
poor.
flying at 3 in the morning. With a set of golf clubs and all that. It's not going to happen. I was thinking about doing it, but
yeah,
I wouldn't got on a plane, I'd be steaming.
Yeah. Well,
just don't drink.
For us. Yeah, exactly, Ruffy. Exactly. Make a sacrifice, you know. I see the blood draining from his face there when you suggested that. Yeah, really looking forward to it. And of course, we'll be interviewing more than a few of the nominees. Who's your Player of the Year in the Scottish Premiership? Give us your thoughts on that. Can anyone stop all the nominees that are coming from Celtic on this one? You can let us know. Continue with so many people. I mean, it's going non-stop about people with their suggestions for the Player of the Year, and of course criticism of the Rangers side, observations on the game. Thank you to so many of you who have mentioned your own thoughts on who you thought was at fault, who should not start for Rangers, who should not be in that lineup next season, and of course Celtic fans as well, talking about how great Celtic were.
I think William Smith makes a great point there, if you'd like to read that out, please.
Yeah, Ruffy, you shaking your foot because you've got new trainers on. William, yes, William.
He's got new Skechers on, William. Well, great spot.
Absolutely.
And I must admit, I looked at the colours, very, very staunch.
Yes, it's brilliant. Yeah, they are.
Pressurised into them. I had to.
Where did you get them?
What, you were pressurised into blue and orange Skechers?
Well, not colour. I don't buy things by the colour.
Good stuff, Ruffy. Well done.
Being
well
comfortable.
done. Yeah, absolutely.
Good.
By the
I
way,
have to buy green insoles just to balance it out.
yeah.
Where's David Albans?
I'll be keeping them.
He painted them orange and blue.
They'll be in the washing machine tonight. They'll be on later on. Don't worry, they're not getting thrown away.
To be fair, I have to say, well done to William, who's our fashion correspondent, who spots anybody who wears the same socks twice in a day, in a couple of days, and of course new Skechers, Ruffy. Well done to you, by the way.
Not at all. I know it's a football show.
Fair digging into your millions and getting a pair of trainers.
Turning into fashion.
Yeah, absolutely. Just out of curiosity, were you wearing them to the end of the season?
Yes.
Yes, that's fine.
Before we move away from the Rangers and Celtic game, I think we should congratulate the security at the game for checking for the flares and not letting any in.
Yeah,
you know, I thought they'd done a magnificent job.
It was
searching.
actually, it was actually. Do you know, at one point, Ali, I must admit, it just shows you. I don't know if it's almost the age gap, the generational thing, but I'm sitting next to a young Adam, our reporter, in the press area, and I looked and I thought, I was thinking to myself of my previous bosses, and I'm thinking, the flares, I can't see the pitch. I looked at the television, I went, nobody can see the pitch, and I thought, they'll be raging, and Adam says, it's brilliant, it just adds to the atmosphere. And I went, Adam, you can't even see the pitch.
It's absolutely a generational thing, I think. I just don't see the point of it. It's like fireworks, it's just having fireworks night or whatever.
Yeah.
I think, I could happily live without it. It does nothing for me. But I have a 12-year-old who would be a bit like Adam, man, who thinks I think might enjoy the flares more than he enjoys the actual football at times. I don't see the attraction at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Just one other little thing that I think would be right to mention is I think that apart from a group of, I think they call them the Union Bears, who would be singing non-stop anyway, the rest of the Rangers support, for me, the atmosphere was listen, it's great to get two sets of fans in. The build-up always starts to cackle a couple of minutes before the kick-off, Tam. But I think there was a real apathy about the Rangers support, the majority of them who are not going to be fooled by anything other than results. And I thought there was a moment after Celtic scored 3 minutes before half time where I felt as if it kind of killed off that excitement from them. They knew it was coming.
Yeah, we spoke about it on Friday. The first goal was enormous in this game. I think if Celtic got it, they would win the game, which was proven to be the case. I think Rangers had to get it, and I think the Rangers fans would have believed that they were going to get the result. I think the Rangers supporters, I'm a few Rangers supporters myself, so they're sicky guys like Sakala in the media saying we're going to do this, we're a better team, we're going to do that. Just do it in the park, and it's all these sound bites coming out for Rangers. We were the better team. The manager contributes to that as well. So, no, I think they just want results. You're right. They want the talking to stop, and they want to just go and get results and actually beat Celtic.
Yeah, okay. Celtic will play Inverness, Cali Thistle. Ali, you were there for PLZ on the Saturday. I thought Falkirk played some nice football, but in the end, we're going to talk to Robbie about the dubious handball in a minute, but in the end they were also undone by two kind of long balls into the box and, headers that killed them.
Inverness were clinical, I did, and I think overall they were the better team. I would agree with you, I liked some of the football that Falkirk played and tried to play football. Unlucky on a couple of occasions. One, like the boy cutting the post in the first half, and then more or less an open goal in the second half. I think had they got a goal back at one point, it might have been interesting, but I never ever thought that the outcome was in any doubt. After Inverness went ahead, I thought the penalty was ridiculously harsh. I'm not sure he can get himself out the way of it. I know by the letter of the law, is it a handball? Yes. When you think of the proximity that he was in for the cross coming in, I think it's very, very difficult to twist your body entirely out of the way. I have to say though, I thought Inverness were worthy of their place in the final, and sometimes maybe it's just fated for you. You think that they were lucky to get that reprieve and be in the tournament itself, and they've found themselves in a final.
If Inverness win the final, Ruffy, I'd give the winner's medal from the manager or the captain to I think it's Fiona, the secretary, who spotted the anomaly in the Queen's Park side. She's got to get a winner's medal, and I'll be allowed to take the Scottish Cup home to her house for a full weekend and have a Scottish Cup party if they win it. Yeah,
there's somebody like that at every club, who every little detail. And I remember Hamilton Accies had one, was it Scott Struthers? Scott would go through everything, it didn't matter who they were playing, he would go through every player, every team line, and unfortunately for them, there was that mistake, and it's cost them dearly. And I don't think, even although if Queen's Park had won it, I don't think they would have got through to the final. So good luck to Inverness, but as Ali said, that first goal was a killer for me. I think it just spoilt the whole game, you know, because as Ali said, how can you get out the road of somebody hitting the ball right at you for 5-6 yards?
Yeah.
Your natural reaction is to put your hand somewhere up, but and it wasn't going towards a goal or anything. It wasn't going towards in the goal. It was coming in across the park.
Yeah.
I thought the referee was going to let it away. I mean, I don't know if he noticed it, but I thought he was going to let it go. It was a
No one
VAR.
even shouted for it.
No,
No one appealed
it was Alan Muir who actually alerted him to
Well,
it, but
that's what
the rule needs to change, Ruffy.
Of course it does, and I think there's enough people, enough managers and clubs annoyed about it, not even up in Scotland but down in England as well. So you would like to think the powers that be, we always say if you're going to change a rule at the start, and VAR will take care of it itself, but the handball one in VAR is outrageous. It's too many cheap goals, you know, and giving other teams, you know, a cheap head start, and I felt sorry for Falkirk at that particular time. I thought they did play good football, but if you got a goal in the first 5-6 minutes of a semi-final, your head's up, you know, and you're on the back foot because if they lose the next one, they're out of the game. They battled away, and you know, obviously the mistake, the boys, Morrison won it.
Got to score that 1-0.
I can imagine. See, if I had been him when the goalkeeper missed it and then he got the ball and he saw the goal, I can imagine the goal shrinking. I can imagine it getting weird and weird, and you could see it going.
It seemed to take an age as well. It seemed to move really slowly.
You're going, oh my God.
Well, to be fair, you're absolutely right in the way you actually described that, Ruffy. That's basically why Tam was let go by so many clubs, because the goal seemed to get weirder and weirder the more clubs he joined. But of course, I think John McGlynn, the Falkirk boss, agrees with your summation of the overall 90 minutes.
Yeah, we have to turn the positives from today, and our performance was really, really good, and take that into it and take more belief. We've just played, they are the informed team in the Championship. You know, they are the informed team, make no mistake about it. You just have to look at all the stats, they'll tell you they are the informed team. And they've won 3-0, and it's very hard to get away from that. But I honestly felt we were the better footballing team throughout the game. But got done. Yeah, you got done, and that kind of happens. It happens in football. But very proud of our team. And very much we can take great belief from it, positives, and kick on, yeah.
Every manager's going to say that, Tam. I think Ali was at the game. I sat there and watched it, and I just thought they did play nice football, but results and finishing is really what matters. Are Falkirk fans enamoured with John McGlynn? Do they like him? I mean, some fans on our social media were far from happy when that clip was out on our Twitter feed, but I mean, I don't know what you want. I mean, he's got them to within an ace of a playoff.
Yeah, I think at the start of the season, I think the Falkirk were doing well. They were challenging Dunfermline. I think they fell away in recent months. They've obviously got a great run to the semi-final. But listen, it's a semi-final. If you're a Falkirk fan, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear we were the better team. You beat 3-0. You know, I'd rather been hopeless and won 1-0 than in the final.
Yeah.
You know, so I understand. You know, John's trying to encourage the team, and he's got bigger games coming up and saying they played well and all that. But at the end of the day, they'd Inverness a striker banging form, Billy Mackay. You know, great finishes, and they won the game 3-0. So, you know, Falkirk will probably play, I would think, you know, maybe Airdrie or Alloa in the first playoff game, and then potentially Cove Rangers or Hamilton Accies. So I think on their day, you know, they're capable. But again, when we get into the playoffs, the Falkirk fans are not interested if you play well with a better team and you get beat. They just want to win the game. They want to get out of that league because they've been stuck in that League One for a few years now, and that's what matters.
Falkirk are a massive club,
Yep.
a massively
Took 10,000 to the game.
supported club. They can't afford to be in that division any longer. They need to be back in the Championship. They need to get in there, and if they did get in there, there'd be an asset to the division because everybody would get a spin-off for the support that they bring.
Well, I have to say great credit to Billy Dodd's come in. He's done a great job with them. Of course, he also is looking at the playoffs to try and get themselves back into the top flight. But over and above that, they're now looking at a Scottish Cup final. It may well have been a clerical error. Who cares? They actually knocked out two Premiership sides on their way through to the final. They dispatched the 3 goals past Falkirk, and I think the Inverness manager thinks there's going to be a huge following down for the final at Hampden on June 3rd.
They've stayed with us. You heard them today, 4,000 down, brilliant. Although people were talking about there'd be no atmosphere at Hampden because there's only 12, 13,000 here. It was a great atmosphere, and I'm sure we'll bring hopefully maybe 15, 20,000 to the final. But they made a noise. They've been rewarded for their loyalty and patience, and they can see that when I've got my full squad, because I've worked hard to build it. We've got not a bad team.
Yeah, fair play to them. If they bring 15, 20,000 down, Ruffy, that's some support. I mean, we'll have our usual battle of this is a disgrace. They should have half the support. Then the Celtic fans will want 70% of the tickets.
No, I think they should be given a shot to get that 15,000.
Yeah.
You know, if they don't get the 15,000, you would think they'd be sensible enough not to, cut out Celtic, because they could sell it 2 times, 3 times, 4 times over. So let's hope they can get a fair amount, that they bring something to the game. We'd like to see a large contingent, and I'm sure they will get that.
Well, let's be fair to the SFA and offer a bit of balance on this, Ali, because this is what will happen. Basically, Celtic will be given their 15,000. I think there's 10,000 hospitality. Celtic will be given their 15,000. Each block will be given block by block to Inverness, and then when they don't sell a certain block, once they reach their cut-off point, then those tickets will be then released to Celtic. So there's no need for the back, far be it from me to cut off that line of a back page spread, but there's no need for it. We now know exactly how it all happens. We even knew it in Scotland games. Yeah,
I think so, and I think it's a sensible way to do it. I know people say, Celtic command a huge support and they have a huge support at every game, but I think you must, in the interest of fairness, give both teams as equal a distribution of tickets as possible. I think you have to give Inverness every chance to bring down as many fans as they can. I think it's a showcase event of their season. Who knows when Inverness will next be in a final again. I think they're entitled to enjoy it, to make the most of it. And if there are tickets left over, then it's obvious that you give them back and you redistribute them. You want the stadium full, but I think it's in the interest of fairness. You've got to try and go for an equitable split.
To be fair though, they've had a good strike rate getting to finals in Inverness, haven't they?
They have. Obviously they won it, was it 2015? 2015, Big Yogi won the cup for them. So I agree. I think they'll bring. I think they could bring 15,000 down.
And they were in one of the worst finals I've ever seen in the League Cup against Aberdeen.
That's right. So they were. Yeah. They're talking about the allocations and stuff. I remember when Hibs played Livingston in the League Cup final at Hampden. We had 40,000 fans there, and Livingston had I think maybe 4 or 5.
I think you've been kind saying 4 or 5.
Probably less than that, and they beat us. So hopefully that's not the same for Celtic fans. But no, I think if Inverness can't sell their tickets, I think it's only natural that you would give them to Celtic fans to go and watch the final. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, who's going to win it? Celtic, Inverness? Is there going to be a shock again? Are Inverness going to go ballistic once more? It's a headline that's always fired out there. It'll certainly be fired out if Inverness were to stop Celtic winning the treble. Can anyone stop Ange Postecoglou's side? And I wonder, as we head towards the weekend, Ruffy, of course they could clinch the title at Tynecastle. Yeah,
I think Hearts will have something to say about that, and nobody likes the champions or the would-be champions coming along and strutting their stuff, and after the final whistle goes, their fans are celebrating and their supporters, so they'll be doing their damnedest, to do something about it.
You get everybody excited the other week there when you opened your gob and said there were 6,000 Celtic fans at it, and about 3,800 thought, have they released more tickets for them? 1,200, Ruffy.
Is that all they're allowed?
1,200, yeah.
Is that another rule? Is that another rule you have to give a percentage?
There's a minimum that you can give, and that's the minimum they're giving the Celtic fans.
Hearts will sell the rest, wouldn't they?
That's why I said, I mean, I know you can't wangle it or anything like that, but if I was part of a team, I'd want to win it in front of my 60,000 supporters, so I would bin that game against Hearts, and then the Rangers won, and then win it. And then win it at home.
Yeah,
I know you don't want to do that, but but it's 1,200, that's what you're going to be celebrating. Do you want it?
You know exactly what Ange Postecoglou's all about, Ruffy.
Yeah, of course.
You want to win it.
I know they will.
You're just being your usual facetious. Okay.
Stupid's the word.
Yeah, I was just about to say to you, it's 1,200 more than they're getting for the next one at Ibrox. Scottish Championship title race looks as if it's going down to the wire. Here's the results from the weekend, Ruffy. Of course, Dundee 0, Cove Rangers 0, Thistle 2, Arbroath 0. Greenock Morton 2, Queen's Park 1, and Ayr United 1, Wraith Rovers 0. That championship table means it is indeed going right down to the wire, Ruffy, and you have a look there, and suddenly Dundee are in the box seat.
Yeah, it's top and bottom. You know, every game at the weekend has got something to play for. You know, apart from, although Wraith Rovers are out here, they've got to play Thistle, so they'll be trying their best. I think. I don't know. It's Queen's Park seem to have went off the boil a wee bit just now. Dundee were poor at getting that game on Friday night.
Yeah,
oh,
Dundee are limping over the line, by the way.
Yeah.
They're doing the last.
There's no. I mean, it's up to they two, and the rest are just fighting for the playoff place.
Yeah, who's winning the league? Is it Dundee on Friday, Ruffy?
If they only need a draw, yeah.
Yeah.
They only need a draw.
And what about the bottom end? I had a wee chat with John Rankin last week. Hamilton at the bottom, Cove a point above them, and are both not out of it.
Well, we saw both at the weekend. The typical Dick's team, they just battled away, but nothing up front, nothing. So I would think they should be able to take care of Hamilton at home. And again, the other one's Cove. They've got, where have they, the Cove have got?
Cove have got Morton at home.
Morton at home, so they've all got something to play for.
Morton have got something to play for, but Inverness are at home at Ayr United. And I think if Inverness win that, they're in the playoffs. But if Inverness don't win it, they're going to have a serious break until the Scottish Cup final. Yeah. You know, so if Inverness don't get in the playoffs, there's 2 or 3 weeks before they play again.
Okay, interesting stuff. Stay tuned across all PLZ Soccer's social media sites to stay right up to date with it. Just before we go, a couple of things. English Premier League was interesting at the weekend because it's getting down to the nitty-gritty at the bottom end of that as well. Here's the results from the English Premier League. Crystal Palace 4, West Ham 3. David Moyes' team still not out of it there. At Brighton, 6-0 winners over Wolves. What a game that was. Brentford defeated Nottingham Forest 2-1. Man United, slender goal victory over Villa. Man City just marching on towards the title with a 2-1 over Fulham. Bournemouth dispatching 4 pass leads. Newcastle, easy enough for them to beat Southampton. And Liverpool 4-3. In the last seconds they managed to get the winner in a 7-goal thriller. And look at this, Ruffy. Leicester, Everton and Arsenal against Chelsea tomorrow. But Leicester against Everton. Right. Every time I've been in Liverpool, I've driven past that beautiful new stadium they're building. And I'll tell you, it's now really squeaky bum time. They've got to get something for those fans.
Yeah, they're one of the teams, again, that you would think you wouldn't want to lose, you know, because of the tradition they've got at the club, you know. So I'm just a bit biased because of Sharpie. Graham Sharp's still there.
Yeah,
so
your pal.
I hope they stay up.
Yeah, Sharpie looks a lot like Cliff Richard in his heyday, doesn't
Somebody
he?
else thought he looked like that.
Yeah,
as well.
exactly. You need to tell that story in your after dinner, Ruffy. It's such a good story. It's such a good story, but maybe not on today's show. What about the answer to our quiz? Here it is. It's who was Aberdeen boss when the Dons last played in a European group stage?
See if Ruffy can get it.
Ruffy?
No.
No. Alison?
Ebby Scoville?
Nope.
Alison?
Eh?
No.
Brown?
Nope.
Fire away.
Jimmy Calderwood.
Jimmy Calderwood, yeah. Ali.
They played the mighty Bayern Munich.
Yep.
Wow.
So
lead at 1 point, was there not?
I think they might have.
maybe 2-1 or something like that in that game. But anyway, I'll tell you, with Barry Robson in place and recruitment in the summer, the Aberdeen fans will be hoping that European nights can come back with a vengeance and maybe get some good scalps along the way. So, interesting times. Okay, just out of curiosity, the one little point I was going to make, when you get to a situation where there are teams that have got something to play for, the fans will turn out. Michael Beale did mention something that will be interesting at the weekend now. Obviously, Celtic fans will be filling pubs and getting ready to celebrate. What will Rangers fans be looking at? What will Michael Beale need to do between now and the end of the season to try and stir some interest? I wonder how many are going to turn up against Aberdeen.
I think possibly Aberdeen Celtic games, there's a rivalry, there's a bit of bite in those games. I think fans, there's still an interest, you're playing for a bit of pride. But I do wonder what the drop-off will be just laterally getting into the last few weeks, because there's nothing left to play for. The season's gone. I don't think you would expect to see the nucleus of that side there. I think they'll all be gone. I think it's almost an act of defiance, turning up now, just saying that this is who I am, you're there to offer your support. But I think there'll be a real apathy among elements of the sport, just given the lack of fight in the last few weeks.
Yeah. Okay, congratulations to Celtic and Inverness Cali Thistle. They'll contest the Scottish Cup final on June 3rd at Hampden Park. Thank you to each and every one of you for contributing on our feed. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And just before we go, Ruffy, I was in the butcher's queue on Saturday morning, and one of the guys behind me said his name was Archie. He played for Ruffy in the Glen Afton side 30 years ago. Archie said to me, Peter, can you mention to Ruffy that it is the 30-year anniversary of your boys winning? I don't know if you're aware of that, but there it is.
I saw
There's you. There you are in that picture.
Yeah.
The Glens manager with the Scottish Junior Cup. You led them to glory, Ruffy, and all the boys want to get back together. Are you getting back together?
I saw that. Yeah, I'd love to if they tell me where it is. Yeah, I'm more than happy to be there with the rest of the guys.
Will you be taking a fee for it?
No, I've already done it.
Taking a fee for it?
Yeah, have you done it?
No, I saw that they're all, Chris and Archie are trying to get all the boys, so it'll be great, it'll be fantastic.
Are you going to?
Good memories.
Will you be available?
Yeah, most definitely be available. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. If you need a couple of guys, maybe just to brighten the night, we are available, aren't we, Tom?
We might
for a small fee.
For a small fee.
Holiday.
Oh, well, I'll do it. To be fair,
we don't know. We're trying to get a date.
I'll do it myself, Ruffy. You're fine. I think I can handle it. 30-year anniversary.
Fantastic.
Great memories.
Oh, magnificent.
Great achievement, Ruffy. You won that for Glenafton.
3 finals
massive budget you had as well. That's
3 finals.
3 finals in a row. Yep. A lot of people said
bigger budget than Pep Guardiola had in the juniors.
Bigger budget at the moment.
Envelopes galore.
Than a few managers, and of course, a lot of people said after the third time when you eventually won it, checkbook manager. Yep, that was the accusation. And
that's why I never went to Albion Rovers. He had no money.
Exactly.
Just bought the cup.
That's exactly it. Brilliant.
Bernard Stappy.
Your name will always be in the history books, Ruffy. Well done to you.
It's a Hall of Fame. It's another Hall of Fame.
Isn't that amazing? Medals just keep flowing to him, and the only thing Alison has won is the predictor from last season, which is now a distant memory. Thanks to Ali, thanks to Tam, thanks to Ruffy, and most of all thanks to you. Hit the subscribe button if you've got some time. Don't forget, keep downloading the podcast as well. You can listen to the programme. You don't necessarily need to watch it live. You can actually watch it at your leisure, and if you download the app, you'll get all the breaking football stories. We'll see you tomorrow on the show. Thanks for watching.